Hey everyone, I'm Chris, and I'm here to rank Game of Thrones Season 4 from worst to best. Season 4 is when everyone started hopping onto the Game of Thrones hype train. After the Red Wedding, everyone wanted to watch the epic fantasy show that was taking the world by storm, and boy were they in for a treat. Season 4 is mostly adapting the second half of A Storm of Swords, the third book in the series the show is based on. This book was also considered the end of part 1 of the 3-act story George R. R. Martin planned to write. So, basically, this season's epic. This season naturally just has many conclusions and exciting climaxes to everything we've been watching for 4 years. Many consider this to be one of, if not the best season of the show. Do I agree with them? Well, let's find out. Time to rank Game of Thrones Season 4 from worst to best. Number 10, we have Episode 4, Oathkeeper. You know the season's good when the lowest spot is already a green. Now this episode is easily the slowest episode of the season. Not much really happening, just set up for the rest of the season. But of course, you gotta have an episode like this so the payoff is more worth it. No setup means no story, really. However, what saves this episode is the entire last third or so that takes place north of the wall. Standout moments being Carl Tanner's reintroduction. This guy's got the biggest potty mouth of any character I've ever seen. He's literally the Negan of Game of Thrones, and he makes me laugh so much. I was a fucking legend in Gennady. And then everything with Bran getting captured I really like because it comes as such a surprise. Finally, the ending of the episode, standout moment for sure. The whole introduction of this White Walker fortress is so cool, and seeing how they seem to have their own society and culture is really fascinating. But the moment the Night King turns this baby into a White Walker blew my mind the first time I saw it. Even in a slow episode, we still get good moments like this. Number 9. The premiere, Two Swords. A better premiere than usual, this would have been lower if it hadn't been for the entire last scene. This premiere, like all other Game of Thrones premieres, is mainly concerned with setting up the season ahead. Thankfully, this season doesn't need much setup. Two Swords does introduce a new major character, Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, who is one of my favorite characters from the entire show. He's just so badass and clever and funny. His introduction scene where he pranks the Lannister soldier is a standout moment of the episode for sure. After losing all our main honorable heroes, it's refreshing to meet a passionate good guy who rebels and just does whatever he wants. This is a character who has better chances of surviving the Game of Thrones. But of course, this premiere wouldn't nearly be as good without Arya and the Hound. From the moment they step into the tavern to the moment they leave, I am smiling the whole time. It's hard to call this a moment, so I'll mix together the Polliver conversation with the tavern brawl into one silver moment called The Hound and His Chickens. This single episode spawned so many Hound memes, he instantly became a fan favorite to anyone new to the show. I mean, this episode alone, he's just spitting out constant quotes. What the f*** salami? Lots of c***s. I'll have to eat every f***ing chicken in this room. I love the Hound. Solid premiere that ends fantastically. Number 8. First of His Name, Episode 5. Again, we follow the same formula of the first half of the episodes, being mostly set up and slower scenes, then ending with excitement. First of His Name may be the slowest episode at first, but then the last sequence, at that time, was some of the most exciting stuff yet. Remember how depressing Season 3 was when literally everyone we loved died horribly? Season 4 begins to make up for it in this episode with everything at Craster's Keep. Jon Snow takes charge on the raid, and it's a fantastic sequence. We get a handful of standout moments from this, so here we go. Hodor kills Locke. Everyone cheers at this part. Hodor's such a lovable character, and it's so satisfying watching him kill this despicable character with such ease. I especially love the small moment when he's back to normal and sees what he's done. It's kinda sad to think that the real Hodor would never commit violence, yet with Bran controlling him, he's unstoppable. Next, Bran almost reunites with Jon. Back in these days, all our hearts skipped whenever there was a chance for Starks to reunite. This was the closest and most frustrating one. He's right there! And then the music comes in, and for a moment you think Jon sees him. Gets me every time. Next, Jon's first boss fight, Carl Tanner. It's an aight duel. This season does step up in terms of fight choreography, but it is tricky with one fighter wielding dual knives and the fight taking place in a cramped tent. But it's fun and exciting because we just want Jon to kick this guy's ass so badly. And that kill though, ooh, I love it. And finally, Ghost reunites with Jon. We didn't get the Stark reunion we wanted, but this will have to do for now. Ghost just looks so happy! Season 4 decided to throw us a bone this episode and gave us a bunch of wins for the good guys, however small they may be. That's what I remember most when I think of First of His Name. Number 7. Episode 3, Breaker of Chains. A consistent episode all around. The exciting start following Joffrey's murder is super fun. From then on, the episode does slow down a lot, but I find every scene very interesting and entertaining throughout. It's odd because this episode doesn't actually have any moments worthy of being a standout, but I'd still put this episode above the previous two because it was more consistent in its pacing and intrigue. Although, the entire ending of Daenerys is really well done, and it occurred to me this season that Daenerys' greatest strength is being a conqueror. She kicks ass at that. It's when she needs to rule is where she struggles because of her black and white view of justice. But anyway, solid episode all around. Number 6. Episode 7, Mockingbird. Now in the second half of the season, all the stakes are raised and storylines are approaching their conclusions. While the episode slows down remarkably a couple times, it always bounces back to be thoroughly entertaining. Standout moments, first, is a small part of the adventures of Arya and the Hound. The only time their storyline slows down and the two characters actually share a moment of sympathy. The moment he screams, "No fire!" and backs away always gets to me. Like, here we have this huge scary dude who kills people almost every time he's on screen, and yet, when it comes to fire, he's like a scared kid. It's so sad. Next, the entire search for Tyrion's champion is so interesting and depressing at the same time. In the depths of Tyrion's acceptance that he's just gonna die, here comes Oberyn Martell. This scene is a fantastic dialogue scene, a silver moment. That's how much I love it. Two of my favorite characters in a room just chatting. But what they talk about shows so much about each character. Oberyn describes how he's always had sympathy for Tyrion, even when he was born. Everyone said Tyrion was a monster, but when Oberyn saw him, it was far from the truth. The line, "That's just a baby," is so powerfully delivered. I always get a little emotional here. Outside of his inner circle, like Bronn, Podrick, and Jaime, Tyrion doesn't have many friends or people that truly care about him. But Oberyn brings some humanity to this show and cares about poor beaten Tyrion. And then of course, him announcing to be Tyrion's champion is a hype ending. Finally, we end the episode at the Vale, where things spiral real quick. The scene where Lysa threatens to push Sansa through the moon door gets our hearts racing, but the moment Peter Baelish tells her he only ever loved one woman, her sister, boom! Through the moon door, silver moment for sure. What an incredible ending! In my opinion, Peter Baelish's most badass moment. Number 5. Episode 2, The Lion and the Rose. Yeah, we're halfway through this and we've already reached a blue. And also, this is why Season 4 is so great. We're only 2 episodes into the season and we hit a blue. Granted, it's mainly a blue because of one storyline. Sure, the others aren't too bad, but the main event is Joffrey and Marjorie's wedding, and it's glorious. This scene takes up almost half the episode, and at that time was the biggest cast of characters for one scene. Lots of standout moments. First, Tyrion breaks up with Shae. It's something we all knew was coming, but it's so sad to see Tyrion. He can't even look her in the eye. My favorite part is the ending when he smacks the bowl into the camera. Next, Oberyn roasts Tywin and Cersei. Cersei's a savage, and Tywin never loses an argument. But Oberyn has already proven himself to be more than a warrior and a lover. This guy is a sharp wit, and the way he just roasts both of these powerful people without a second thought is even more badass than any Lannister soldier he stabs. Following that, we have essentially 3 stand-up moments in a row. The first, Joffrey's version of the War of the Five Kings. Joffrey's a dick. We all know it. But this episode reminded us again and again how hateful he can be, and it doesn't get more humiliating than this. I love the creativity of the scene. The costumes like Renly riding Loras and his butt sticking out, the wildfire explosion, and when Robb is beheaded, the music and muffling of sounds really adds to this depressing show. Next, the whole scene is great, but it's mainly the moment where Tyrion refuses to kneel. He is humiliated so much, but that's one line he won't cross. As soon as Joffrey said that word, the music stopped. And our hearts stopped with it. I honestly thought Tyrion was about to die right here. And then finally, the moment we've all been waiting for, Joffrey's death. Welcome to the Purple Wedding, golden moment for sure. The first time I saw this scene, I couldn't believe it. My heart was skipping so much, and I dreaded every second with this pompous prick being around, but that first cough always gets me. You don't hear a cough in a show unless it's important. Once again, Game of Thrones doesn't skimp on big moments. If something's gonna happen, it's gonna be huge and glorious. We all loved watching Joffrey choke to death. The makeup and digital effects on his face are phenomenal, and it is a fantastic way to set this season in motion. Who'd have thought that just 3 episodes after losing our remaining heroes that the main villain would be snuffed out like this? Season 4 is off to the races. Number 4, Episode 8, The Mountain and the Viper. Lots going on here. We're approaching the end, and surprising developments aim to change the show forever. You can feel it. Plenty of standout moments. First, Sansa finally plays a Game of Thrones. Seeing Sansa perfectly lie her way through this trial and saving Peter's life is very satisfying because this poor girl has been mistreated for so long. It feels so good to watch her use her talents and finally take control. Next, Jorah is banished. Who'd have thought that just out of nowhere, Jorah's story completely changes forever? One letter sends this guy packing, and it's heartbreaking to watch. Another one, Arya's crazy cackle. This girl can't catch a break. When she hears that another family member of her just died, all she can do is laugh her ass off, and you can't help but laugh with her. And on to the main event. Tyrion and Jaime's conversation about Orson and his beetles is such a fascinating scene that I love more every time I watch it. In the end, this scene means nothing actually. It mainly functions as a calm before the storm, a small chat before Tyrion's fate is decided. But this story about Orson and his beetles is also a microcosm for the whole series. People die, and a lot of times they just die for no reason. We spend our whole lives thinking about death and the seemingly pointlessness of life in general. It's a question with no answer. And yet again, They tell us about Orson, learning all about him, and then Tyrion ends his story by pointing out Orson himself pointlessly died by a mule kick to the chest. Death in this series is just so often sudden and harsh. And finally, the name of the episode comes into play when Oberyn Martell fights the Mountain. This scene is a gold moment. Yep, another one. First of all, we are finally treated to some kick-ass fight choreography. Oberyn being so cocky and awesome while actually doing well against this beast makes him infinitely likable. My heart has never raced more than the first time I saw this scene. Is he gonna die? Is he gonna die? Is he gonna die? Because if he does, Tyrion dies. The stakes are so fucking high. Oh my god! But Oberyn wins. Yes! Finally! We've already given up on rooting for the Starks because they always lose, but here we have this witty, badass new guy taking the stage and we all love him, and he finally won! But then he questions the Mountain. Your heart is thumping out of your chest. Just finish him! And then it happens. One of the most shocking moments of the series to me. But even worse, it is one of the most horrifying moments of the series when the Mountain gouges out Oberyn's eyes and smashes his head with his bare hands, all the while admitting that he raped and murdered Elia Martell and her children. This show just never fails to completely kill your hopes. And then Tywin states Tyrion will be sentenced to death. The end. What? I was stunned when this finished. I felt shaky, like I had just witnessed someone actually die in front of me in real life. What gets me is Oberyn's screams. You couldn't ever imagine this awesome, cocky, dashing warrior screaming like a dying pig. It haunts me to this day. Your hopes are gone. Never again will you root for any hero, because this is Game of Thrones. They will lose. Number 3. Episode 6. The Laws of Gods and Men. So like many episodes this season, the first half or so is other storylines we need to catch up on. And then the main event shows up, Tyrion's trial. This is one of my favorite sequences of the entire show. If the whole episode was this, it would be a purple for sure. Everything in Tyrion's story has built to this moment. There are so many callbacks to all the things he's done over the series. You really get the sense we're reaching a sort of conclusion to Tyrion Lannister. Season 2 was the Tyrion season, but in many ways, I also see this season as another Tyrion season. And nothing showcases that more than this episode. At every turn, Tyrion is being lied about and humiliated, and it just makes you seethe with anger throughout. Tyrion is easily one of the most likable characters of the whole show, and to watch this pathetic excuse of a trial lie and rip him apart is horrible. But it steps up to something beyond in this silver moment when Shae testifies against him. From the moment you see Tyrion's look, you already know who's walking up to that stand. Every word from Shae's mouth tears apart Tyrion's heart, and watching him suffer makes us suffer. Rewatching the series, you can see all these moments where Shae felt the way she claims to feel in her testimony, with certain details like waiting in his chamber for hours, feeling like he loved Sansa, only using her for sex. In the middle of it all, we also get a standout moment when Oberyn asks the question a few of us were probably thinking: did you f him like it was his last night in this world? Even in the middle of this hugely depressing scene, Oberyn finds a way to make us all laugh. But then, we are treated to some of the best acting in the entire series, when Tyrion's rage finally explodes in one of the most epic speeches ever made, which is of course a golden moment. Tyrion finally lets loose and says how we all feel. In a show like Game of Thrones, people rarely say what they're actually thinking because you can get killed for it. And in a season where Tyrion's life has been constantly hanging by a thread, and by extension practically the whole series, this moment almost completely seals Tyrion's fate. He utterly destroys everyone in that room with words, and it is so completely satisfying. Sure, at the same time, a lot of us are Jaime saying, "No, stop talking, Tyrion, you're gonna die now!" But we can't help but sit back and soak in the utter rage in his voice. Watching your vicious bastard die gave me more relief than 1,000 lion whores. Damn! And even further, we all feel like Peter Dinklage could relate to this monologue a lot when the line, "I'm guilty of being a dwarf," comes into play. I've been on trial for that my entire life. God, that cuts so deep. And then the drop the mic moment of demanding a trial by combat is something no one saw coming. Now Tyrion has a chance at living! And with the epic stare down between the smartest Lannisters, and boom, Reigns of Castamere roll over the credits. This was the Lannister show. Not a single Stark shown throughout the whole episode. The only time they've ever done that. Just a masterclass scene, one of my favorites of the whole series. Oh, here we go. Number 2. Episode 9, The Watchers on the Wall. Yup, it's a battle episode, so that automatically makes it amazing for me. But for real, Game of Thrones nails its battles. There's so much to talk about that I really gotta condense this. Overall, even though we only have Jon Snow, Samwell Tarly, Ygritte, and I guess sort of Tormund for our main characters of the episode, side characters are given time to shine, and the battle is given more focus and attention this time around. And the battle, by the way, is amazing to watch. We got ourselves a perfect popcorn episode, ladies and gentlemen. With the sheer amount of moments, there's no doubt out why this is a purple for me. Alistair Thorne's speech. This is the only episode of the series where we actually kind of respect Alistair Thorne, and his charge into battle is very admirable. The giant arrow. Remember how I mentioned little battle moments to give more focus and creativity? This episode's got many of them, and this is just one of them. Normal arrow can't reach them? Let me show you how it's done. Boom! And then we follow it all the way down. Damn! Pip's death? Yeah, we gotta lose some characters. Pip was a nice kid. Sam comforting him really shows us how far this character has come. Then, we get a small duel with Alistair Thorne and Tormund, both characters we dislike and like for various reasons. It's a cool little fight that hypes me up for what's to come. Next, we got the fire barrel incident. Sometimes in battles, stuff goes wrong, and one little mistake like a stuck barrel can cause a string of accidents. And then, we got Gren facing the giant. Gren was one of my favorite minor characters, and this guy faces a giant like a boss, and reciting their Night's Watch vows always gives me the chills. Now we got a few silver moments, let's go. First, this beautiful one-shot that does a 360 showcasing the whole battle beautifully. This is AAA filmmaking right here. I mean, the choreography, the staging, the lighting, the timing, you get little highlights from all the major characters, it's amazing. Next, one of my favorite duels of the whole series, Jon versus Styr. I think that's how you pronounce it. Jon goes full action hero mode this episode, and when he faces the real boss fight of the season, I get so pumped. The choreography is pretty damn awesome in this scene. Kit Harington, by the way, is one of the best swordsmen of the series. He's able to do all his own fight scenes so well, it's seamless. The anvil slam always gets a reaction out of people. Unlike most movies and shows, you really believe the hero's not gonna make it. Game of Thrones puts you on edge constantly in moments like this, but Jon learns from his past with Carl Tanner and spits blood in this guy's face, and boosh! That's a victory to celebrate. And then, oh my god, another silver moment. Ygritte's death. I love Jon's smile. This guy maybe has smiled 5 times in this entire show, but when he sees the love of his life in the middle of a battle pointing a loaded arrow at him right after he just got his ass kicked, all he can do is smile. Ygritte's death is so sudden and sad, and it makes me so happy to see them both share a moment of just pure unconditional love. Her final words being her catchphrase is just perfect. And then also this shot is easily one of the most beautiful shots of the entire series. One of the few times that they've ever used slow-mo in Game of Thrones. Fire on Ygritte's side, snow on Jon's side, a story of ice and fire. Gorgeous and emotional. And finally, we get a bonus standout moment when they drop one of the most badass medieval weapons I've ever seen, the scythe. I love watching this thing tear these guys to shreds. So, like, oh my god, that was a lot. Like, this episode just had it all. Intense stakes, drama, romance, sadness, laughs, epic cheer moments, and once again, the focus on a single storyline adds to its simpleness. A well-earned purple. And my number 1 favorite episode of Season 4 is Episode 10, The Children. This is what a finale should be. Up until now, Game of Thrones had never quite nailed its finales. The climax of the seasons usually fell in episode 9, but Season 4 flips that on its head and gives us an incredible season finale. Nearly every scene has a standout moment to me. I mean, this thing is almost flawless. It's a powerhouse of conclusions that have been built up for 4 seasons now. Nothing is the same after this episode. Let's begin. Jon meets with Mance Rayder. The first time you watch this, your heart is pumping the whole time. Even though we've barely seen Mance Rayder, I really like this guy. He's respectful, reasonable, and honorable as well. They both toast to their fallen comrades like gentlemen. Then, Stannis saves the day. Silver moment for sure. Oh my god. He's been a complicated character that I never really cared too much for. I know there's a whole fan base that refers to him as Stannis the Manus, and they love him, but I just honestly never really agreed with them until this moment here. It is just so thrilling. We just had a battle episode, and right away we get another small battle segment. Next, Jon meets Stannis. It's small, but it's the first time Jon has become connected with the rest of the Game of Thrones story, and I really appreciate how Stannis immediately shows Jon the respect he deserves, and they both just get to work dealing with the mess they're in together. Next, Tywin loses an argument. I know, what? I didn't know that was possible. 4 seasons of Tywin is the power, he cannot be outmatched, and yet here comes his daughter, using the one piece of knowledge that can topple his dynasty. You can feel everything falling apart from here on out. After that, Daenerys has the most heartbreaking meeting with a grieving father who's lost his daughter to Drogon. One of the few times the show makes me actually emotional. It's something about the music and this father's squeaky, broken voice that just gets to me every time I watch this scene. And so then, Daenerys chains her dragons. Another sad scene. Best part is her dragons' cries for their mom while she turns around crying, watching them get sealed in. Then, oh my god, it just keeps going. We get a triple. Part 1, Brienne meets Arya and the Hound. More storylines converging, and Arya and Brienne were getting along so well. Even though all these characters want Arya to be safe, they're turned on each other by unfair circumstances, and you just know there's no happy ending here. Then, Part 2, the Hound and Brienne duel. Silver moment for sure. The actual sword fight is pretty cool, but it's when they get to fist fighting when this becomes the most brutal fight scene of the show. Dick punching, vagina kicking, ear biting, rock smashing, falling off a cliff. Holy shit, this fight was so epic. And part 3, the Hound begs for death. This storyline was a fan favorite, and for good reason too. It's sad to see it end with the Hound, one of the most badass and fearsome men, begging for death. His line, "At least I'd have one happy memory," cuts so deep, but Arya leaving him to die is even more sad. This episode really just never lets up, does it? And here we go, the climax of the finale. In a way, this marks the end of the first half of the whole show, and something we've always felt might happen finally occurs. The first half, a silver moment. Tyrion kills Shae. Her betrayal is shocking, their fight is tragic, and Tyrion finally loses it and strangles her to death. These two once actually loved each other, and I can't believe it ended with one killing the other. But finally, the golden moment we all waited for. Tyrion kills Tywin. These two had the most interesting character dynamic in the entire show for me. I mean, it's such tragic irony of Tywin hating the son who grew up to be the most like him in every way. Tyrion's depression and vices all stem from his father who never loved him. Tywin's life was spent building a family legacy, but in the end, if he looked to Tyrion as his family and not the monster who murdered his wife, his family legacy would have carried on through him. But instead, hatred turned son against father, and Tyrion ends their dynasty with Joffrey's crossbow. Tywin, the most powerful and feared man in the entire story, dies on the toilet. It's a perfectly poetic conclusion to their story. Tywin is arguably the biggest death of the series at this point in the story. Nothing is the same now, and that concludes an amazing finale to an amazing season. Oh boy, so what's the final stats of this behemoth? We got 4 greens, almost entirely the first half of the season, 1 lonely cyan, 3 blues, all sprinkled throughout the epic season, and ending on a shocking 2 purples. Adding up the point values, we get an astounding 5.8. This season kicked ass. Now of course, I can't just do a top 5, so time for a top 10 moments of the season. I'm exhausted from talking about this, so I'm pretty much just gonna state the moments now. Number 10, Shae's testimony. Number 9, Oberyn the champion, one of the best one-on-one dialogue scenes of the whole show. Number 8, the Hound versus Brienne, one of the best fights of the show. Number 7, the Hound and his chickens, my favorite Hound moment. It solidified him as one of my favorite characters. Number 6, Peter pushes Lysa through the moon door. Epic, shocking, sudden twist, and satisfying all at the same time. Number 5, Jon versus Styr, even more one of my favorite duels of the entire show. Number 4, Joffrey's death. Yeah, that's right, we're at the golden moments now. There's more than just one. Joffrey's death is one of them. We all loved it. Number 3, Oberyn versus the Mountain, one of the most shocking and just horrifying scenes of the whole show. God, it always gets me. Number 2, Tyrion kills Tywin, the perfect conclusion to the most interesting character dynamic of the entire show for me. And then number 1, my favorite Tyrion moment, Tyrion's speech. Oh my god, that was so much. So after everything, is it even a question what I would rank this season? Of course it's a purple. This is why Game of Thrones is my favorite TV show. This is when the show became amazing to me. Nearly flawless storytelling, amazing moments, a great battle, and exciting game-changing conclusions to the most well-made season yet. Game of Thrones, I love you. Next week, I'll be ranking Season 5, which is one of the most controversial seasons of the show. Link to my document detailing all of my rankings is in the description below. Please share your rankings, and thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye!